I'm Berks County Commissioner Christian Leinbach, and I want to welcome you to our virtual County Commissioners Board meeting for June the 4th. We will begin with a moment of silence, followed by a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to note that we did have an executive session on May the 31st dealing with emergency preparedness. Are there any additions or corrections to the May 28th, 2020 Commissioner meetings and the May 28th Phase 3 and Beyond meeting? Hearing none, the meeting minutes will stand approved as presented. I want to note that comments, if anyone has any comments about specific agenda items, we will take them at this time. Just to reiterate, public comment will be accepted through the Q&A function on Microsoft Teams. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality. Any comments without a name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. There's no more than 3 minutes per comment. The meeting comment period at the end is limited to 30 minutes in total. Please be concise. Comments will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue with the commissioners. Any commissioner response to public comment will be done at the discretion of the commissioners after the completion of the comment period. And with that, I see no comments on specific agenda items, so we'll move into the agenda. Number 1, authorizing Budget Department adopt a resolution authorizing 2020 budget transfers in the amount of $346,763 and 2020 appropriations in the amount of $1,280,233 per listing dated June the 1st of 2020. Several items are listed under Human Resources. Item A, adopt a resolution authorizing human resource recommendations per listing dated June the 4th. Authorize the appointment of Deborah Brown to Assistant Public Defender 2 in the Public Defender's Office. Item 2, authorize the appointment of Adam Bompadre to Assistant Public Defender 3 in the Public Defender's Office. Item 3, authorize the promotion of Cara Angelo from County Caseworker 2 to County Caseworker Supervisor 1 in Children and Youth Services. And then one item listed under the Commissioners, adopt a resolution authorizing the chair to execute the release and settlement agreement between Benjamin Foods, LLC and the County of Berks, Travelers Casualty and Surety Company of America, along with St. Paul Fire and Marine Insurance Company and Howard Clayman and Gina Clayman and Jacobs Holdings, LLC, in the settlement of all claims arising under or relating to the transaction agreement between Benjamin Foods, the indemnitors, and the County of Berks. Item 2, a motion authorizing execution of contract agreements and amendments as furnished by the contract coordinator as set forth on the attached listing dated June the 2nd of 2020. There are a total of 4 contracts, one with the Area Agency on Aging, one with the Berks County Controller, one with Information Systems, and one with the Berks County Planning Commission. And then item 3, a motion to ratify and confirm payments as set forth in the Controller's Office voucher for the week ending June the 3rd of 2020 and the payment of electronic transfers and employee payroll.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is carried. And with that, we'll turn to our Berks County Treasurer, Dennis Adams, with the Treasurer's Report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have an opening balance today of $230,076,167.28. A balance to clear of $3,961,724.30, leaving us with a balance today of $226,114,442.98.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and we'll move to our County Controller, Sandy Graffius, for the Controller's Report.
It's short and sweet today. Total accounts payable, $4,123,882.43, and that's it.
Thank you very much, Sandy. And now we'll move to our Chief Administrative Officer, Ron Seaman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just some brief remarks. I once again cannot help but commend the excellent work the Elections Services Office has done, and commend all the poll workers that have come forward to help us through this primary, albeit they were paid. They did a tremendous job running presidential elections because of the differences in federal election law versus state election law are never easy, but everyone working together just did a fantastic job with this past primary, and they're all to be commended. We look forward to the same cooperation and support for the fall election. And then lastly, I thought long and hard about this as we sit on the eve of moving from a red designation to a yellow designation here in Berks County tomorrow. There's lots of things I feel I'd like to say given the situation in the world in general and in our United States specifically, but sometimes some things are better left unsaid. And the only thing I would like to offer is, please, everybody, think long and hard, use good common sense, and think about and dwell on we, W-E, instead of me, M-E. And we will all come through this safe and better. And that's all I have to offer.
Thank you very much, Ron. And we'll now move to Commissioner comments, and we'll begin with Commissioner Kevin Barnhart.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach and everyone else who joined us today. And Ron, those are very fitting words for today. I'm going to start with unfortunate and terrible information and try to uplift till we get to the end. Our SOS Berks Opioids Coalition will be meeting tomorrow virtually, as we have done in the past. One of the sad commentaries about being in COVID-19 is our spike in overdose deaths. We were at March, we had 9 in Berks County. April, we had 7. May, we had 18. So that's some serious information there that obviously the SOS Berks still need to remain relevant in the community and continue to try to drop those numbers. So we hope that those numbers start to go in the other direction in June and beyond. Item 2, for the past few weeks, I've been trying to report as much information as I can regarding CARES Act funding and information coming out of Harrisburg. I'm here to tell you I'm very disappointed. Each and every day I get not the information we should be getting, whether we're going to get the money, whether we're not going to get the money, how much we're going to get. I'm finding out more and more that in fact Harrisburg did receive the CARES Act funding from Washington way back on April 17th. But I was told it's not there yet, it's not there yet, it's not there yet. And then each day I find out more information as to what we can and cannot use the money for. We entered into an arrangement with Cook County Wellness to pay them on a monthly basis for contact tracing. So now we're in a situation where we need them to do the tracing in Berks County, but what pot of money that will be coming out of is, again, a question mark. They're certainly going to be reimbursed, but we have to figure out what funding stream we're going to use there. So it's not easy sometimes dealing with the upper bureaucracy in Harrisburg, but it really has disappointed me because the information I have been giving sometimes is not as accurate as it should. Echoing what Ron Seaman said about elections, wow, quite a different election. I'm going to repeat some of the things I said yesterday during our media event. We slightly outdid the machine count in paper ballots. The paper ballots were 39,036. The in-person voting was 38,130. And that's about a 34% turnout, which is good. And in comparison to the 2012 primary presidential, the 2016 presidential primary was down 21%. So we are already looking at November. We are going to be purchasing an additional DS450, which is the scanner. We have 2 scanners that do 100 ballots a minute. We know that we're going to go from about a 34% turnout to probably in excess of 80%. So we need that equipment. We also have envelopers that actually cut the envelopes at a high rate. We have one that was on back order. We're going to be ordering another one. So not just the equipment we need, but we're also going to need manpower. And the manpower really came generally from furloughed employees in the county system. But I think we're going to really need to reach back into some of our departments and ask for if they could free up a person or two for weeks prior to the general November election, and then probably at least a week afterwards. Everybody chomps at the bit on Tuesday night and wants to know where the election results are, but we're in a new world here when it comes to counting in an election. When you look at that machine, the numbers Tuesday night, this past Tuesday night, that was the machine numbers. So you had less than half of the ballots cast. The good news is Debbie believes they're going to finish up toward the end of this day, Thursday. She will upload the scanned results into the system to marry up with the machine numbers, but that still does not include, it's still completely unofficial because they're still sorting through the provisionals and the mail-in ballots. So every poll, with the exception of 2, so 200 out of 202 polls had to open the bag and use provisionals, meaning people went to the polls and attempted to vote when they also had a mail-in ballot. Either it was on their dining room table or it was in election services. So when you went to the polls and you had a mail-in ballot application and a ballot, the book said must vote provisional. So that's why you had to vote with a paper ballot. So now election services has to cross-reference whether Kevin Barnhart mailed his ballot in and Kevin Barnhart went to the polls. If he did that, then they count this one does not get counted. So my hat's off to the employees of election services, as well as the many employees, interpreters, and people from other offices here that really stepped up and helped us out. It's really a learning experience here, and everybody's hanging tight. They're out here in the 13th floor Commissioner's boardroom, have been hard at it since Tuesday morning. Last but not least, echoing another thing that Ron said, we're going to be moving into yellow phase tomorrow, which is really appreciated that we're moving in that direction. But we're only going to get to green and beyond green if we heed what yellow means and follow the guidelines for yellow. This is not, hey, rip the Band-Aid off and everything's fine. Let's please keep in mind that we still have a long way to go during this virus, and let's all do our part to be able to move from yellow to green. In a short period of time. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Barnhart. At this time, we'll move to Commissioner Rivera.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner Leinbach. A few things also want to echo Commissioner Barnhart. Thanking all the poll workers, the interpreters, those that are here in the services center counting the ballots. There's a very, very large amount, and they're still working on that. and to the election staff as well, who have worked long days and long hours. So thank you very much for your support in that aspect. A few things in preparation to go to yellow tomorrow. There's a few things that we've been doing. One, we've been working on some marketing material, which if it's available, and you can please bring that up. And this is important because we have to understand that moving to yellow does not mean that we stop wearing masks, that we stop social distancing, that we stop all other mitigation efforts. On the contrary, we need to make sure that we maintain these efforts, that we keep on wearing our mask in public, that we travel responsibly, that we wash our hands frequently, that we maintain social distancing. So we need to keep on doing everything that we are doing at this moment to get from yellow to green. The quickest that we can do that is within 14 days, as long as the numbers continue to stay where they're at or to decrease. And there's a few other things in there as well in reference to contact tracing and testing. But we need to everyone continue to do our part in this yellow phase. I know now, being in summer, we have family events, we have activities. It's hot outside and it's a bother to wear a mask. But please, I ask everyone to continue doing your part to stop the spread so that we can get into yellow. In the yellow phase, many of the businesses can open, but not all of them. And there's restriction on some of those that can open. So please, let's do our best to be able to get to green as soon as possible so the rest of those businesses can open up. Also, in the yellow, the Liquor Control Board has put forth some temporary guidance for those businesses that have liquor licenses as to where they can serve the liquor, because businesses in yellow can open to serve dining in the outside, outdoors. So if you are a business that has a liquor license, please go to the website, find the new guidance there to see how you can benefit from that during we're going through the yellow and green phases yet. One other thing is we have been handing out masks primarily in the city and those areas where the masks are needed, understanding that we need to continue to focus on this as a primary source of stopping the spread and helping Harvest, Reading Recreation, Olivet Boys and Girls Club, South of Penn Task Force, Trinity Lutheran, City Light Ministries, and a few others, the Dominican Association, have all helped hand out those masks. We've done 5,000 so far. So I appreciate the support in that aspect. Apart from the masks, we've been handing out rack cards, making sure people continue to follow all the guidelines, as well as posters in the different stores. The GRCA has been working with the county in reference to rebuilding Berks. And there's different things that they're going on. And one of them is the education for businesses that are opening. And that's extremely important. We need to make sure that businesses are, one, opening the right way, and two, doing the things that they need to do to be able to reopen and to be able to be successful as well. Right now, the GRCA will be holding on June the 15th, 16th, and 17th. It's a 3-part series, and it's best practices for reopening your business, and it's a certificate program. It's an hour and a half for 3 days. They talk about different items there, and what it does, it helps you prepare to reopen. And even if you're reopening, if you're opened already, these are important items as well to make sure that you're following safety guidelines. Some of the topics they include are overview of state guidelines, going from red to yellow to green, workplace cleanliness best practices, human resource guidelines, returning to the office or workplace safely, legal issues, understanding litigation and liability, and supporting your workforce or employees and enabling them to thrive. And apart from that, they're going to have different educational sessions as well. They're going to be offering peer-to-peer industry roundtables, and all of this is free of cost because it's done in conjunction with the county, understanding the importance of getting businesses ready to reopen, but also to be able to reopen properly and to be able to thrive in this new economy that we're living through. I've touched on the small business loan program before, but the application will be available on June the 15th through the 19th. For more information on it and for a list of the documents that you will be required to submit, visit www.doyourpartberks.com. Again, that is www.doyourpartberks.com for more information on that. And you'll find what you need there. The application will be done directly through Neighborhood Housing Services on their website, and that web page where you need to go to specifically will be up shortly on doyourpartberks.com and on their website as well. So please help share this information with other business owners. One last item I want to touch on, as well as we all know what happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd. It's something we have to understand that racism is something that's real and it's unacceptable. I do want to thank those that did go out and march, that they did so peacefully, they did so the right way, so their voices could be heard. Thank you. On Friday, tomorrow, there will be a candlelight vigil that the city is putting together, together with a citizen and the Hispanic Center, and it will be at 7 o'clock at on Penn Street between 5th and 6th Street. Again, this is a vigil of unity and peace, which is what we which is what we need right now. Again, what happened in Minneapolis is totally acceptable. Right now, the county is looking at what can be done. So at the county level, this does not happen. We're going to have some discussions in reference to that later on today. So hopefully we'll have more information to share as to what we will move forward to do with that. But again, we all need to have our voices heard. So thank you again for those who had made your voices heard. You did it in a peaceful way. We need to make sure that racism stops, and we need to make sure that each of us is taking action to be able to accomplish that. Thank you very much. Commissioner Leinbach.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Rivera. I also want to give my thanks to our election department and their leadership over a very challenging election. I would guess the most challenging election circumstances they've ever had to deal with. In fact, Debbie Oliveri told me that. When you look at the first time you're using mail-in ballots, the first time we've ever dealt with an election under circumstances like COVID-19, with our staff wearing masks and all the social distancing. And I also want to thank the folks that worked the polls on election day for the county. We had somewhere around 400 plus slots to fill maybe 4 weeks ago, and to see all of those slots filled up, people making certain that the voters that wanted to come out and vote on election day were able to do that. So thank you very much. I also want to make note of the fact that, yes, tomorrow the county is moving to yellow, and the question has been asked across the Commonwealth. What are the metrics the state is going to be looking at to determine when a county moves from yellow to green? And through the task force that I sit on with the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, we were able to ask that question last week of the governor and his staff. And this Wednesday, we received the answer. And here are the four metrics that the state is looking at. I don't know if it was Commissioner Barnhart or Rivera referenced, they're looking for 2 weeks of data. So number one is we have to have stable or reduced case count over a 2-week period. Number two, we need to have contact tracing in place. That'll beginning here in Berks County. Well, actually, not begin. Contact tracing has been in place through the Pennsylvania Department of Health, but County Co-Wellness is going to be taking over that role starting, I believe, June the 8th. The third issue they're looking at is hospital bed availability. That has not been a problem here in Berks. And then number four is testing of 2% of the population. We're looking for a little bit more clarification on that item. But those are the four areas that the governor's office has shared with the County Commissioners Association, that these are the areas that they will be looking at when they make a determination of counties moving from yellow to green. Monday afternoon, I thought I needed to do more than just think about the tragic incident surrounding George Floyd. And so as a result, I reached out via email to the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania and also to the National Association of Counties. And then subsequent to that, I forwarded my email to NACO, the National Association of Counties, to my colleagues to consider the same request. I'm going to read the email that I sent on Monday, June the 1st, to the National Association of Counties. It's addressed to Matt Chase, our Executive Director, Deborah Cox, our Deputy Director, and my fellow NACO Executive Committee members. Those are 4 officers and 3 other regional U.S. members. I represent the Northeast region. You know me well. I'm wrestling with the sheer evil of the death of George Floyd and other prior tragedies here in America. I'm haunted with the unique and undeniable history of the African American in America, and I'm old enough to remember the 60s and the broader police brutality in turning peaceful marches into violent marks in the American history. Please understand, I'm not preaching to you, I'm preaching to myself. While most counties have almost no role in direct law enforcement, we do oversee jails with correction officers and provide HR for our district attorney and sheriff's departments. Let me be clear. I have no issue with our Berks County jail warden, Berks County district attorney, or Berks County sheriff or their staff. However, too often we hear, as we have in the tragic case of George Floyd, that the law enforcement personnel involved, quote, had a history, end quote. In the Floyd case, both officers Chauvin and Tao, quote, had a record, end quote. Unfortunately, as is often the case, these records are coming to light only after a horrific tragedy has occurred. I'm requesting that NACO research whether there might be model HR policies that could address law enforcement personnel issues before we find our county in these kinds of tragic consequences. This should not happen to anyone in America, but unfortunately, too often this seems to happen to African American men. Simply chalking it up to a very small minority of those in law enforcement or to a bad cop is no longer acceptable. We need to do more. We need to create an environment in all levels of law enforcement where the moral and ethical personnel are celebrated and those lacking good morals and ethical judgment are not tolerated in the ranks of the men and women who wear the badge of law enforcement. If there is no model HR policy or policies, then let me be the first to say it is time to create such a policy. I look forward to hearing back from you very soon, and I welcome your thoughts on this important crisis. I want to compliment both CCAP at the state level and NACO. They both responded immediately, letting me know that they felt this was a very good idea. And what we're looking at is not necessarily rules dealing with this behavior after the fact, but looking at better vetting of candidates in law enforcement before they become part of the system, to try to weed that out, dealing with issues like the buddy system or misplaced loyalties, looking at union collective bargaining agreements relative to law enforcement, and addressing these issues in a well thought out and serious way. Tuesday, Matt Chase, our executive director, called me and we talked for over a half hour. Both of us discussed the need to do more than protest, more than join a vigil, and I do plan to be at the vigil on Friday evening. And it's incumbent on those of us that are in positions where we can impact policy to thoughtfully and carefully look at our options and then take action to protect the rights of all Americans. I thank you for the opportunity to share. At this time, I'll open the floor for our row officers. Any comments from row officers? Hearing none, we will go to public comment. Mary Buer, are you prepared to go through public comment?
Yes. Crystal Kowalski, why I'm missing. Good morning, commissioners. My comment today deals with fundamental change that is quite easy to implement. The upheaval we are experiencing in every state across this nation is a cry for equal justice, and on a more basic level, a cry for the right to life itself. Had the Minneapolis Police Department done what was just, the 4 officers who worked as a team to torture and murder George Floyd would have been arrested on May 25th and held in custody. This did not happen. Instead, the system has set up a scenario where a teenage girl was required to film and witness the murder of a member of her community, because if she did not, there would literally be no chance at justice. This is an act of violence. Please understand that the way the U.S. criminal justice system operates has driven tens of thousands of people into the street in the middle of a pandemic. This is an act of violence. This country is reaping what it has sown and continues to sow. Every day it plants the seeds for mass protest. I do understand that you can only affect change in this county, so I am publicly asking you to do what you have the ability and authority to accomplish. Please work with the DA, President, Judge, Sheriff, Prison Board, and the City of Reading and its surrounding municipalities to call for community oversight boards. The only thing that can move us towards peace is to hear and respond to the cries for justice. Thank you. David Del Negro from Why I'm Missing. With Berks moving to yellow tomorrow, has there been any communication from or with the state about how quickly we could move to the green phase? If so, is there a rough timeline? Troy Turner from Reading. Almost 200 people attended the Shutdown Berks Coalition Town Hall last night, listening to dozens of speakers, including elected officials, lawyers, pediatricians, psychologists, and those who read the testimony of detained families. All are committed to pressuring you and the governor to shut down the center and stop imprisoning families. These are your constituents, gentlemen. Will you represent them or continue to ignore their pleas for help? Gillian Herzog, Spring Township. Over a week ago, the horrific death of George Floyd sparked national and now international protests calling for justice for his death and end to the systemic racism. Some of those very same demonstrators have been seen across our county. Where are you, commissioners? You have not even done as little as to make a public statement about this. What steps will you commit to taking in order to hold police accountable across the county? Jules Minotto, Mount Penn. The worldwide protests about the taking of Black lives by law enforcement represent a referendum on white supremacy and a historic call for the creation of a society in which Black people are free to live and to thrive. Demands include defunding the police, investing in Black and brown communities, and defending Black lives. What will you do differently as a result of what you've seen around the world in the past few days? The sheriff's budget is a whopping $10.7 million. How much of that is for military-style equipment that does nothing to keep us safe and serves only to intimidate and provoke? Joanne Kozlowski, Wernersville. Last Friday, you met with Governor Wolf. Did you discuss the Berks Detention Center? If so, what did you talk about? What did he say? Marquis Richards, Reading. What kind of anti-racist work is Berks County doing to ensure that they do not come into our community with the intent to intimidate? Marie Sykes, Reading. How is Berks committed to protecting undocumented folks in the community? Shana Rose, Lower Alsace. To detaining people at the Berks County Detention Center for over 15 years, will you close the center and end your toxic relationship with ICE? Right now, it's clear you are silent on what the Black community is calling for our community, and you are certainly silent on endangerment and unjust conditions of refugees fleeing here for a better life at the detention center. Patty Therese, West Lawn. Commissioners Barnhart and Rivera, you have said you're willing to talk about what the community needs and work with Governor Wolf about getting the funding we need to repurpose the detention center into something of service to the community. What steps are you taking to advance this? You said that you and the governor are too busy to deal with the detention center at this time, but the pandemic makes closure all the more urgent. Time is running out for the detained families and their children. Saeed Ahmed, why missing? Have you created an emergency fund to assist residents with payments critical to health, housing, and work connectivity? Okay. Daquan Williams, Reading. Do you have programs to get police more familiar with the community they are supposed to protect and serve? Chris Ellis, Reading. Will you seek debt collections for non-payment of fines and fees, including but not limited to fines and fees related to traffic violations, child support payments, and restitution through at least September? Melvia Ahmed. What are you doing to ensure that nursing home residents and workers are safe? Are you ensuring that testing is being done in nursing homes? Jane Palmer, why missing? There are currently 5 families locked up in the detention center at present. Most have been there for months in violation of the Flores Agreement. They have been given no information about COVID-19. All they know is what they hear on TV. They have no masks or gloves and are unable to distance themselves to keep safe. They are frightened, sick, and traumatized. How much longer will you ignore this gross violation of the law and basic human rights? Bree Tyson, Reading. In the midst of the Black Lives Matter marches lately, I've learned that why I'm missing's police records are free to look up and available completely online. Will you ensure that Berks County police records are available in the same way? Risa Marmontello, Amity Township. I was pleased to see the number of people that used mail-in ballots for the recent election. but we know the number of voters will be much, much higher in November. For this election, there was one handmade, insecure, and very unprofessional drop box available in the county building. What will you do to ensure everyone who wants to vote from home can do so? And will you establish many secure drop boxes throughout the county? Jess Royer, Spring Township. As a machine inspector for the past Tuesday's primary election, I want to commend the Berks County Election Services staff for the excellent training they provided. However, we had several people come in with their actual mail-in ballot. I would hope that for November's general election, there are multiple tamper-proof drop boxes available around the county, and also that polling places could serve as drop-off points on election day. I would also like to see every voter in Berks County receive an official individualized ballot that can be submitted either before or on election day. The lower voter turnout is often lamented by both observers and elected officials. So clearly, access to voting should be of paramount importance. Thank you. Tyson Washington Redding.
Tyler
Washington Redding, sorry. In order to ensure any task force or initiative for connecting with the community from the Sheriff's Department, the messaging and action plans can't just come from elected officials and law enforcement. How will community members of color be represented in this effort? Will you commit to having community members participate and weigh in?
And that's the end of those questions. There was one question submitted by Facebook, and I can't see where this person is from. So I'm not going to read it. That's the simple rule. We need name and your municipality. So the comment period has ended. As in the past, I will provide an opportunity. Would either of my colleagues like to make a comment?
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. In no particular order, I listened to all the questions. One regarding suspension of fines and fees and child support. Those are court-related questions that the Board of Commissioners do not have purview over. That is handled through the court system, and I don't know exactly if they have been holding fines and fees and child support back until things normalize. The other one about the elections, we did discuss drop boxes. We were not prepared to do that in this primary. The particularly main reason was many of our normal polling locations were not available, like the libraries in Reading were closed down to us. So we are going to certainly look at some secure drop boxes for the November general election. But I've reminded people over the last few weeks that you can get that. I got my ballot 50 days before the primary. I filled it out and mailed it in. So for me, the sooner you apply for a mail-in ballot, the sooner you get the mail-in ballot, the sooner you can get it in and understand that it's in election services. That would help that. And the question about everyone getting a ballot, the state would not permit us to do that. We did ask that question back in April, if we could simply mail all the Democrats, Republicans, and all others in Reading ballots, and they told us we were not allowed to. Last but not least, there was a lot of questions about the BCRC. Contrary to your belief, they are well cared for. You may not particularly care for the fact they are there, but they are well cared for. And I'll repeat myself for the umpteenth time. Back in July of last year, I announced that I wanted to work collaboratively with the governor's office to repurpose the building and find employment for our 60 dedicated employees. That was going well through July and fell apart in September, when all the promises that were made by the governor's office were not kept. There were questions about, hey, how are you gonna hire 60 members of the staff? How are you gonna pay us rent for the building? How are you gonna repurpose the building? It had several different ideas about repurposing the building, but had no money to back it up. I do believe there should be a repurpose of that facility, but it has to be done logically and systematically. And as of today, I have not received a response from the governor's office regarding that. I did discuss this at length on Monday with Senator Schwenk. She is attempting to have a meeting with the governor and myself to sit down and analyze this. So it is something that's going on, not as active as some people would like, but there are discussions taking place. Again, I have an obligation to many people, and I am not going to pick up the phone and lay off 60 people, and I'm not going to leave that building sit vacant if the state doesn't step forward and help us, because logically, I think the only other governmental agency that can repurpose a 1970s vintage nursing home annex and look for other methods to use it would be the state. Two things that they were going to use it for was a step-down center for folks with mental health incarceration from Norristown to step down back into the community, as well as a second piece of it for adolescents with mental health and substance use disorder to actually transition them back into the community as well. Two laudable efforts, two facilities that the state sorely needs. We have the facility, and it just is a matter of whether the administration really wants to honestly talk to the commissioners and come up with a viable repurposing plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnhart. Commissioner Rivera?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. A few things. One, the vigil tomorrow is actually at City Park. I had mistakenly said it was on Penn Street between 5th and 6th Street. There was an initial press release that came out indicating that, but then there was a second one with the change of venue. So that's tomorrow, Friday, City Park at 7 p.m. There was a question in there in reference to what's the quickest we could go to green. Technically, the quickest we can get to green is in 14 days after we go yellow. And that's because one of the 4 items that Commissioner Leinbach mentioned earlier was that for a 14-day period that we show either maintaining the number of positive cases level or a decrease without any spike. So the minimum would be 14 days, putting us into June the 19th as the earliest, if we can reach all of the 4 guidelines that are in there. There was another question in reference to emergency funds to help with different things. There is emergency funds for evictions. Right now, there's the Coalition to End Homelessness and some other organizations do have money out there. They're prepared for when the eviction process does reopen for the courts in July to be able to address that. So if you do have any questions, you can reach out to them. The city has other funds as well, so there is money out there available for that. They will be looking at each particular situation individually. The goal is to be able to maintain people in their homes. So please, if you do have any issues with that, there is money that's being made available for that. There may be more made available through the CARES Act as well and through the state. So that is something that we have been looking into for a while now, understanding that that could become an issue. The other thing for work connectivity, CareerLink and the Workforce Development Board have been actively working on that, working with employers here in the area. So if you do have any questions in reference to work connectivity, you can reach out to CareerLink. And one other thing I wanted to touch on is the one person asked about public police records and why missing being available to the public and asking if the county would do that. The county does not have a police force. The county has no policing authority over the county. Each municipality either has a police force or they work with the Pennsylvania State Police. So the county does not have a police force. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Rivera and Barnhart. I love when the two of you go first. I had 6 things to respond to, and I'm now down to 1 item. You addressed all the others. The question was, what are we doing about nursing homes here in Berks County? 2 answers. Number 1, the commissioners made a decision very early on in this crisis to be completely transparent about the Berksheim. And we on a regular basis have provided data on number of cases among residents, among staff. We provided information on the deaths, confirmed COVID-19 deaths. And more recently, this week, in the last couple of days, we released the results of the testing that occurred last week for staff and for residents. And we let the public know that testing is going to continue for the foreseeable future. The tests that we have right now have established a baseline. The Berksheim is the only nursing home in Berks County over which we have authority and or responsibility, and we've taken that very seriously. The other nursing homes come under the responsibility of the direct owners, whoever they may be, and the Pennsylvania Department of Health. So if you have questions about what's happening in any other nursing home, I would encourage you to reach out to the owners of that facility or to reach out to the Pennsylvania Department of Health, since they have the oversight responsibility for those nursing homes. I just do want to jump in on the policing issue. It is commonly misunderstood that counties in Pennsylvania have some role in policing, direct or indirectly, when it comes to local police departments. Number one, it's important to understand that the county code and county government is established by the Commonwealth through the legislature, and municipal government is established as well through the legislature, and they're two separate entities. So we don't have authority over a municipality that has a police department or chooses to utilize state police. The hiring, firing, and managing of local police departments occurs either by the municipality. For instance, a West Reading has the West Reading Police Department, or Wyomissing, or a group of municipalities where you have a regional police department, say like Central Berks Police. There you have multiple municipalities that are being served but manage that particular police department. My comments revolved around the one area of law enforcement, and sometimes people don't look at it as law enforcement, but that is the Berks County Jail and the corrections officers who serve at the jail, and then our indirect role with the Berks County District Attorney and the Berks County Sheriff's Department. And by indirect, they're both elected individuals. They have something called 1620 rights under Pennsylvania law, which means they have the right to hire, fire, and manage their staff. However, they come under the HR rules that are established in county policy. And in both cases, actually all three cases, Teamsters Union represents our corrections officers at the jail. The detectives unions represent the detectives at in the DA's office, and the sheriff's deputies have their own independent union. So language in those collective bargaining agreements are also put together in conjunction in the with the elected officials each time those bargaining agreements come up. And so that's what I'm referencing, and looking at front-end vetting policies that would help address some of those issues. You'll hear more about that, but I can tell you we're ready, working not just at the county level. CCAP is looking at this from a Commonwealth perspective, and NACO is looking at this from a national perspective. And just so you're aware, there are 3,069 counties across the United States. That's all that I have. If my colleagues have nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.